Hi, it's Andy.
It's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Welcome to the A.D.K channel. Today's video, well, you know what it is in the title. Andy and Kirk don't, but I'm fairly certain. I'll be intrigued to know at the end if how quickly you clocked this track, because this is, for this particular band, this is probably their biggest known song. But the question is do these guys know it? Let's go find out. I wanted to go further, but I can't. It's the 30-second rule. So 30 seconds in, first initial impression. And do you know what? There's going to be people watching this screaming at home going, why did you just stop it halfway through the intro? But sorry. Initial thoughts, Andy.
I am surprised I got this because it's not a band I'm particularly familiar with or know the stuff, but I kind of recognise the video, as you say, it's on the channels. Is it Corrosion Conformity, Boat with a Bullet?
Yay!
Yeah, what a guess. Yeah, very, very slow, very heavy. Yeah. Again, it's one of them bands that I should be really into. They're my sort of thing. I really don't know why I'm not, because they were part of when I was growing up at school, they were sort of the sort of skateboarders used to like Corrosion Conformity. That sort of spiky skull logo used to be on boards and stickers all over the place. So, but not a band I've ever got into. But yeah, looking forward to hearing the rest of this track. So I don't know it. I just sort of guessed it from what I do know of the band.
Yeah,
from like the first few seconds.
Fair enough. Kirk, initial thoughts?
The video, I'm guessing is early 90s, because even bands like Life of Agony and Biohazard have doom passages, don't they? Slow, menacing passages. So it always surprised me that Corrosion of Conformity almost ended up as like a stoner rock band, because this is quite evil sounding, isn't it, at the beginning? But when I say evil, like the typical cold water in the face, harsh reality type scenarios about to unfold. That's what I'm expecting. I've not actually seen this video, and I wouldn't have guessed that it's Corrosion of Conformity, because they do look like a Scandinavian death metal band.
Yeah, I think this is 1990-1991 era. Okay. I think.
Great start, by the way. I'm impressed. What about you, Dave? Obviously, you're a fan of the band. What was your first thoughts when you heard this song?
Yeah, so this wasn't the song I got into the band from. I got into them off the next album, and I had to go back to this. And it's an interesting. It is almost a song of two parts. The intro sets it up, but for me, well, you'll get to see the main part of the song has a different vibe to it. So it's a weird setup, but live, I mean, this is such a brutal track live. And it's really, I'll explain a little bit about the video and the song at the end about what this meant to the band. I think afterwards, because it's worth watching it and just explaining it from there. But really, really good track, one of my favorites, and just a great kind of rock out track. So yeah, let's keep going. Okay, there we go. So obviously, yes, we had it. Corrosion of Conformity and Vote with a Bullet. I didn't feel like there was a reason to stop because it's very continuous, that sort of track. There wasn't a huge amount of variation throughout once it kicks in. But Andy, overall thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm not. As I say, I'm not familiar with the song, but I kind of got it from that intro. It's that main riff is the kind of sort of song part they used for the metal shows on TV back in the day. You know, the sort of the intro to the song, pretty much like this channel. They've got a great riff that they use to introduce the program, or the break, the cutaway to the advert break. You know, that sort of I think they use a couple of Pantera ones on Headbangers Ball, that kind of. That's the sort of vibe I got from that riff. The effects on the vocals at the beginning, that was fucking terrible. Why they've come up with that? They used the same thing sort of on the third verse, but not quite as extreme, and it works a little bit better. But the effects on that sort of vocalization at the beginning was, I don't know what that was all about. But I like the guy's vocals. The song is obviously politically orientated, trying to drive a message as confirmed by the end sort of card. But yes, it's sort of groove. It's got a groove in it. You mentioned sort of the, it's catchy, gets your head bobbing. I mean, it's not. I don't know, how would you categorize it? That's Kirk's area. He'll come to that, I'm sure, but it's not doom. It's, I don't know. It's a strange sort of concoction of styles there, which may be why, because they're not sort of sort of straightforward in any particular genre, maybe why I didn't get into them. But I'll probably check out this album, and maybe the one that you first got into the band, the second one, if that's the sort of timeline. But again, it's not a band I'm particularly familiar with. I know we've covered their late material on the channel before, which I also enjoyed. But yeah, that's a good track. I like the look of the video as well. That sort of sepia effect throughout.
Yeah.
It's unusual that you've got the band performing along with the story element. They're kind of in the same living room as the American Family. Sort of performing, and then there's cutaways from both parties. But yeah, good video, good song. Enjoyed it.
Kirk?
Two things I'll pick up on there. Yeah, the sepia effect, you're right, that was prevalent in the early 90s. I remember that Henry Rollins video, Liar. And I think even one of the Life of Agony videos uses that at the beginning. So it's very much of its time, and it helps you identify the era. Two bands that were certainly influenced by this era of Corrosion of Conformity. White Zombie, vocal-wise, I would say, he's taken a lot of inspiration. And actually Pantera, more the aesthetics of Pantera. When it gets to 1992, Pantera essentially look like Corrosion of Conformity, don't they? They look like these weathered people who've grown up on the street. They love the heavy metal, but they've also lived a tough life. That's certainly the image that you get with Pantera on Vulgar Display of Power. And I dare say that this album has had a big impact on that. Yeah, musically, we actually do need to give some credit, believe it or not, to major labels. Because 1991, major labels are actually taking a risk signing a band like this, signing a band like Biohazard, Helmet. When you look at Cro-Mags, they even end up on a major label. So you've got, obviously, grunge is about to break, or is in its first stages of world domination, isn't it? Towards the end of 1991, you've got the Black Album that's come out. So where would you put this? This has got a lot of integrity to it. You can tell that the background, they've certainly listened to hardcore in the past. And then one of them's wearing a Black Sabbath Volume 4 t-shirt. That flanger effect on the vocal, I agree, is atrocious. But at the same time, you're just thinking, why was there no interference from record company execs saying, what the fuck are you doing? Even college radio won't play this. So in some ways, I still like the integrity how they're just like we were talking about with Faith No More on Midlife Crisis. It's like, okay, we might give you a video single for MTV, but we're going to do it on our terms. And that's what they've done here. But yeah, I love the riffing. Listen how sharp the syncopation was there. And Dave, I'm guessing they're probably in drop B as well, aren't they? So there's definitely a downtuned element, which in 1991, you're still not hearing a lot. You've got Soundgarden and Helmet.
I think they're in D.
Parkus, but there's
drop D.
Drop D, okay, fair enough. So that's starting to come through as well. But I enjoyed that. And like you, Andy, I would definitely go back and listen to that, because I know that I'd be going back and listening to a significant piece of metal history there. Metal, rock, hardcore, stoner rock, whatever. It's clear that this is a pivotal moment for this band and for heavy music in 1991, and we might not have been aware of that at the time.
Okay, so I'm going to give you. This is such an interesting period of time for Corrosion of Conformity here. Now, I may get a little bit of some of the facts not quite right, but it's best to my ability. So the album before this came off the album Blind, and the album before this was much more hardcore punk. The Blind album, Pepper Keenan, who's the guitarist, vocalist on this video, is not the vocalist in Corrosion of Conformity at this point. The vocalist is a guy called Carl, who also appears in the video pretending to play guitar. He doesn't actually play guitar, but he had to be in the video somehow, so they had him strumming a guitar basically and bench pressing some things and stuff like that. But they gave Pepper one song on the album, which was Vote With a Bullet. Unfortunately, that was also their lead single and their most famous track, which if you can imagine being the vocalist of the band and the song on the album is not the one that you sing on, it's got to be a bit of a piss take for you, and you're not going to be the best pleased. So they had this album, completely different vibe, the rest of the songs on the album, and then Vote With a Bullet came out, and he did this weird effect thing. It's weird to talk about a clean vocal where you can't actually understand what the fuck is going on, which is unfortunately what happened on this. And it's weird because it doesn't appear on anything else. It's only on Vote With a Bullet. So what ends up happening here is they do this album, Vote With a Bullet becomes a big track. There's some disagreements within the band, and then basically Carl leaves the band. Pepper takes over on vocals for the next album, but also the bass player, he leaves. So they go in, they've been signed to a major label off the back of Blind, and they're getting ready to record Deliverance. But at this point in time, they have no bass player, and they're like, well, what do we do? And then because the whole band sort of starts falling apart, they get dropped and they don't have a label. So they start having to write, and because they don't know what they're going to do, and they weren't at this point even sure if Pepper was going to do vocals properly, because he wasn't planning to be the main vocalist. So what's really interesting, this is the album I would recommend people, it's called Deliverance, is the album I would recommend to check out, because what they ended up doing was, while they were waiting to work out what they were doing, Woody Weatherman and Pepper and Reeve Mullin got together and were basically just writing instrumental bits. So on Deliverance, what you get is this whole song, and then you'll get about a 45-second to a minute and a half of instrumental of these lovely guitar, and it's all like flamenco sort of stuff, and then it goes into another stoner song, but they all nicely segue, and there's these different vibes, and then and it was because, and when asked about this on the next album, about why were there so many instrumental pieces, they were like, well, we didn't know if we were going to have a record label, we didn't have a vocalist properly at the time, we had no bass player, so we ended up writing these instrumental things to kill time while we were waiting, and they ended up becoming part of the next album. So it's a really nice transition, and that's where you got the main crux of what became Corrosion of Conformity as was most well known. Obviously they went back to becoming a hardcore band at a late place when Woody left, or when Pepper left, and they went back to a three piece, and then they reformed and all sorts of stuff. But Deliverance is definitely the one you want to check out. The one after that, which is Wise Blood, I think it's called, a lot more commercial. They all cut their hair short, and they went out on tour with Metallica, and it was all radio friendly rock and Alice in Chains style. They kind of went really down a different direction at that point, and then they went back and found their sound again. But Deliverance is definitely worth checking out. But it's a really interesting thing. I can't imagine being the person in the band, being Carl, and having the one big song off your album being the song that you're not actually the singer on, and people go, "This is awesome! Why isn't he singing on every track?" And he's like, "Oh fuck."
Dave, this is very interesting because recently we done a Killswitch Engage song, which had both their sort of established vocalists on the same track, and we were discussing how good their relationship must be within the band and with each other to allow that to happen. You know, Jesse was the vocalist at the time, and they've had the idea of bringing Howard Jones in to do a big part of one particular song.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if this Carl guy had the same attitude, the story of Corrosion of Conformity could have been very, very different. If he'd have embraced the idea of the fact that Pepper Keenan sung on the song that everybody seems to like, they could have built that, and it could have turned out so different. But he's obviously, probably quite rightly, got the arse and walked out or left the band, and it's kind of just put them into a bit of disarray. So it's sort of interesting how two very similar situations have gone very, very different.
No, I think he decided to go off and do his own thing. But what's more interesting from recent years is that he goes out on tour as Carl. What I can't remember his name's Carl, whatever his name's. Blind era Corrosion of Conformity. So he goes out with his own band and he basically plays that album. They got some credit from that because of the fact that Reed Mullin, who was the drummer before he passed away of Corrosion of Conformity, would actually go out and play with them sometimes. And so he would go and being in Corrosion of Conformity, but would also go out and play with Carl's band and play the Blind era Corrosion of Conformity album. But you're like, it kind of starts making you think of bands like Queensryche and stuff like that, where people go out and they like, well, I was an integral part of writing on that band, and so we're going to go out and tour that album. Even though you're maybe just the bass player of that band, you've got out and go, this is my version of the album, and we're going out with my band with a new singer, and you're like, is it really worth it?
Yeah, I'd still go and see a band like that if I was a big fan and there was like a, you know, very similar to the sort of Evanescence sort of We Are the Fallen scenario we done also a few weeks ago. You know, I'd still go and see a band that had elements of my favourite album or my favourite era of the band, even though it wasn't the full lineup or the original vocals or whatever. So you know, I don't the old money grabbing symbol about this situation, but you kind of can't blame the guy if he wants to perform. He wants to make a bit of money, and you know, there's the audience there to go and see him, which I'm sure there was.
I mean, I would say if you're into the Blind album, Dance with the Dead is another song that came off, which was another kind of single, and it's very different as far as vocal because it's got Carl singing on it, and it's much more of a classic rock vocal. But it's a great track as well, and it's interesting to hear Pepper sing it because he has to sing that live as well, which is very different to hear the two vocalists. But there we go, Corrosion of Conformity and Vote with a Bullet. Now, if you like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the video sometime very soon. Take care.